Our opening words today come from Ian Riddle. Come one, come all. Come with your missing pieces and your extra screws. Come with your hard edges and your soft spots. Come with your bowed heads and upright spines. Come all you flamboyant and drab, verbose and quiet, fidgeting and lethargic. All you with large vision and tender hearts, all you with small courage and budding fear, bring your lisp and your stutter and your song. Bring your gravel and your drawl and your lilt. Bring your anger and your joy and your righteous indignation. Misfits and conformists and everyone in between. Come into this space and be welcome. Be who you are. Bring where you've traveled. Bring what you long for, and let us worship together.
Thank you, Larka. That's pretty hard to follow. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Holly Bruce.
What's up, Holly?
Not much yet. I serve this congregation on the Board of Trustees and on the Endowment Committee. We welcome you this morning, whether it is your first time here or you are a long-standing member. We come together to learn from one another, to share our joys and sorrows, and to accomplish good works that we could not do alone. If you are visiting for the first time, we extend an extra warm welcome and our gratitude for you taking the time to get to know us better, and we invite you to take home a green visitor's packet, which you will find on the table down in the lobby, excellently manned by TJ. We also invite you to fill out a visitor form. I think there's one inside. If you'd like to receive our weekly email and monthly newsletter, they help you navigate all of our services, programs, and events. Folks visiting online today can find the visitor form in the chat or comments section. Whoops, I'm used to those touch screens. I also want you to let you folks know about our annual membership meeting 2 weeks from today. This is a really important event where we'll vote on new members for the board and for other committee positions, and vote to approve the budget for the 2024-2025 2025 church year. Okay. All members are encouraged to attend the meeting, which will follow the service on May 19th. Children's activities will be available downstairs during the meeting to better enable families to attend. Following today's service, the board invites you to get a preview of the 2024-25 budget and ask any questions you might have. This is also a good opportunity for you to get to know the people on the board and learn about the inner workings of the congregation, which I tell you does get talked about at the board meeting. You can also join us using the regular Sunday service Zoom link, which you can find on our website. In the spirit of getting to know one another, we invite you to say hello to your neighbors in any way that makes you comfortable.
Good morning. My name's Laura. I'm the minister here, also helping out with today's service. Kai Hummer and Richard's on tech, Lark's on piano, Nicole is our music director, and I don't know what color it is for hospitality today.
I think it's gold.
Gold team on hospitality. Just a couple announcements before we carry on. The May Unison, that's our monthly newsletter, is out. You would have gotten a copy of that in your email last week. Of course, you can always find a copy on our website. Check there, and there's a few printed copies where the name tags are on the wall down there. It's May, which is like, wow, it's May. It's gonna be 2025 next year. I know that shocked, every time I say 2025, I'm like, what? Summer is also coming soon. Now, last week I put a summer sign-up sheet out there for folks to sign up to lead services. Those of you who may be new here, we do a lot of lay-led services in the summer. Staff takes more time off. And y'all readily filled that out. There's only one opening left. I was like, whoa. Oh, there's no openings left for leading the service. I stand corrected. Y'all have a lot to say and you're eager to do it, which is great. The spot that remains empty is for musicians, so if you're somebody who wants to share music on the piano or guitar, ukulele, whatever, flute, trombone, take anything, you can sign up there. Otherwise, we use a lot of recorded music. Our music staff has the summer off, so please see that. And if you did sign up, you'll be getting an email from me in the next week or two asking what your service is about so that we can write little description blurbs for it for the summer newsletter. Also out there on the table, you'll see some little slips of paper and a red box. That's for Question Box Sunday, which will be at the end of this month. This is an annual service where you ask questions and I answer them. This year I'm hoping to have a board member or two. I noticed that Nicole is on that Sunday, so I'm like, oh hey, you could ask questions of the board or music if you wanted to. Then I don't have to be in the hot seat for everything. So you can put your questions in that box or you can come and ask them in person that day. You can also email them to me if you'd like. And the other thing that I wanted to note that's also out there is some sign-up instructions for you the vote. So who here maybe has a little election anxiety? Maybe a little political PTSD that's starting to get a little triggered, from our past few election cycles? One of the things that you can do is to be active in the election. So the broader UU organization and along with local organizations like our Minnesota UU Social Justice Alliance, that's Moose Jaw, are organizing a campaign to send postcards to voters to remind folks to vote. It's a real easy thing you can do, helps to ease your anxiety, and we all know that it's really important to get the vote out next year. So you can find instructions for how to do that straight back on the table behind me. Did anybody else have any announcements? Oh, yeah.
Last day to fill out the music survey.
Oh, today is the last day for the music survey. You can find a link for that in the Friday email. Are there physical copies of that here today?
Yes.
And who should they see about that?
Me.
You should see Nicole if you want to fill out a physical form for the survey. If you're like, I'm going to totally forget to do that online later, she'll hand you a paper one and you can do it. And that really helps to, give us some feedback about how we're doing and things that you might like to hear in the future. So check that out. Anybody? Yeah?
Oh, I just want to say there's only one packet left of postcards,
Okay.
but I was going to contact, if anybody's interested, I can contact Karen. But we've got time, September 2nd.
Yeah, we've got a lot of time. Well, maybe if somebody picks up that packet of postcards, we can get a couple more and just keep adding a couple here and there. Okay. Great. Anybody else? All right, then let's move on with the service. I invite you all to join in the words for our chalice lighting, which should be up behind me, which today the words are from Reverend David Breeden, who used to serve this congregation and now serves First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis. By the way, David's retiring this year, for those of you that still follow along with what he's doing, so that's great for him. We unite in our differences.
In background and belief, we unite with gratitude and hope. Hope for a world of differences. Hope for a world that honors difference. We unite in community
With gratitude for difference. And our opening hymn today is number 1013 in the Teal hymnal, Open My Heart.
Yeah, we're starting off right away.
Starting off right away with Karen,
You want to be here or you want to be in the middle?
all right, so this is a round. Why don't we sing it through in unison twice, so we get familiar with the tune, and then we'll separate. 1, 2, 3. Okay?
And I'm going to play it through once so you hear it before you even sing it.
I want to say that was perfect. And here's why, because the whole service today is about making space for other voices. Right? You see how that fits, how that worked? It's like sometimes it comes out and it's kind of like a little challenging to hear when you're letting lots of voices in the room. Anyway, I was like, wow, this is a real good metaphor for what we're talking about today. Anyway, so in that sense, it's absolutely perfect. We tried, and that's all that matters. We stuck with it, even though it may have been awkward and uncomfortable, right? To let all those voices in there and not know where we're supposed to. Love it. Each week we set aside a few moments for the joys and sorrows of the congregation. If you're here in person and you have something to share, you can raise your hand, and one of the ushers will come around with a microphone. If you're watching on Zoom, you can write it in the chat, and we will share it here in the room. And if you're watching on YouTube today or tomorrow or 150 years from now, you can write, if there's still YouTube 150 years from now, you can write it in the comment section and share how you're doing there.
Brothers and sisters, I got to come to the front for this one. And it's not going to be weather forecast, just to let you know. But I got nothing but joy. Joy at your contributions to my journey heading toward cataract surgery. How about those twins, y'all? How about those Timberwolves? Still in the victory on the road in Denver last night. I was so wound up, I couldn't even sleep last night. I didn't get to sleep till 3 or 4 o'clock this morning. Got all this good news and joy to share. My journey to cataract surgery, I already passed through 2 hoops. My next hoop to pass through is May 23rd with the pre-op examination. And then the surgery itself has a date. June the 5th. That's going to be a new journey and a new creation through True Vision. CHU Vision Institute on 91st and Lindale. He's the surgeon that's going to do the surgery. And I greatly, with a huge amount of gratitude from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your contributions. I still got a little while to go to 6,000, but I think the momentum is carrying toward that number.
Yeah, we got some time to get there. And I'm going to say you can find that GoFundMe in your Friday email or on our Facebook page. If you scroll down, it's there. So check that out.
I'm excited to say that, we have our Alzheimer's choir, and it wasn't going to do it until June, and now it's this Friday. And it's at the Meeting House Church in Edina at 11 o'clock.
Great.
I'm Karen Olson. I have a joy. Everyone likes to be thanked for something that they've done, but to get a card in the mail thanking you for something you've done is extra special. Fran Bolke, I don't think she's here, sent cards to those of us on the auction committee. Raise them up if you got them. And thanked us for all our hard work. And Jean, do we have a new total?
Still right around 12.
Around 12,000. We did good.
It's amazing.
I have
Kathy's first. Hold on. Kathy, go ahead. There you go.
I'm Kathy. I have a joy that it's nice and we can be golfing pretty soon. And the concern is we put it in the Unison, the MVUF Summer Golf, but we didn't say where it was. It's in Burnsville, in Burnham Wood, which is off between 13 and Burnsville Parkway on Parkview Road.
I do think Kathy's email is in the Unison about it, so
Yeah.
if you forget where it was, just email her about golfing.
It's really fun because we don't take a scorecard. I don't count. Half of the time I don't finish the course. It's good. It's a nice walk.
Thank you.
So I've had like 5 months of low stress, and it's going to continue, which is such a beautiful thing. So I picked up gardening in pots, and I think I have a tomato that's almost this tall already, just in the house, like in the window. So sometime this summer, maybe the day I signed up for the thing, service leadership and the talk. I might bring like a huge organic salad for everybody. So that's my joy.
Yeah, Seth and then Betty.
My joy is 3 years of marriage with my wife, Yamini.
Hooray! Happy anniversary, and a fresh haircut, too.
Well, I guess I have one of each. Might be attending a wedding this weekend, happily for a grandniece. The reason it's this weekend and not June 1st is because the groom's father is terminal cancer, so.
Well, my grandchildren, Jonah and Athena, who live in Thailand, are coming home for July. And will be here all that month. So they're 10 and 8 now, so we're excited.
Are there any on Zoom, Richard?
Sarah Collins writes that Matthew's mom is still in failing health.
Well, we hold her in our hearts, and we hold all of the joys and sorrows that have been shared this morning, and those that remain in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, and I ask you all to join in our song response. I invite you all into a meditative or prayerful posture for our centering space today, which is titled That Which Holds All by Nancy Schaefer. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, Mystery, God. But then thinking these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot fully be addressed, she added particularities, saying, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Ancient One, Mystery, we will never, ever fully know, Gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, Thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope, even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant. But then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room was silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names as well. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child said, water. Someone said, Kuan Yin. Then womb, witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen. Amen. We have a new offering recipient this month, so those of you who may be new here, or just a reminder for everyone, we share our Sunday offering with an organization each month. So anything that's collected in the baskets gets shared. Reminder, if you're paying your pledge in the basket, you should definitely put it in an envelope and say that it's for your pledge, so we don't send half of your pledge away. Our organization that we're sharing with this month is a local organization called Every Meal. And Every Meal does the work of providing meals that, in the gaps for kids that get school lunches. So they would get nutritious meals for their school lunches, but then go home and not have food, or not have food on the weekend, or not have food during the summer. So this organization started organizing so that they could give food to kids to have in the evening, on the weekends, and in the summer. It's a great organization. Will the ushers please come forward to take the offering?
This is a reading from Black Elk. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the Spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they might live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy.
For our service today, I'm going to be talking about some upcoming changes to our UU principles. And I've talked about this a bit this year, but we always have new folks joining us and visitors, so it's a good thing to repeat it again. As we mentioned earlier, we're having our annual meeting here at Minnesota Valley in a couple of weeks. It's an important annual business meeting every year to set the budget. Now, at the end of June, there'll be another member meeting. That's the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association, of which we're a part. So MVUUF is a member congregation of the larger organization. As such, we're allowed to have several delegates from our congregation attend. This year's assembly is just online. If you're interested in being a delegate, you should let me know and I'll get you signed up. And you can also learn more about General Assembly and what that's about at uua.org. Like our annual member meeting, the General Assembly is also where the business of our denomination is conducted through the will and voting of its delegates and membership. This is where policies, bylaws, and visions are set that guide our denomination in its ever-expanding work of building a beloved community for all. This year is an exceptionally extraordinary year for our denomination in terms of defining our vision and values. Within our UUA bylaws, under Article 2, live our current 7 principles and our named 6 sources of inspiration. And they currently look like this, right? Most of you are probably familiar. You've Googled these things before you ever got here and you saw them. So we have our current 7 principles, and then we have our 6 sources of inspiration and wisdom, which people aren't quite as familiar with as they are the 7 principles. So since the merging of the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America, that happened in 1961, our principles and our sources have always been housed in Article 2 of our bylaws, and they've undergone some changes. Now, UUs pride themselves on being a living tradition, as it says on your gray hymnal. That is to say that we're not stagnant, right? Our guiding values and principles have changed both as Unitarians and as Universalists, and together, as times change, so do we. Now, originally, these weren't even called principles and sources, but they were 6 statements of purpose. This is in 1961, which, among other things, I'm not going to read them all, but I'll read a couple, said that we unite to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. It also said that we affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, and the use of democratic method in human relationships. Said that we unite to implement a vision of one world, striving for a world community founded on ideals of brotherhood. And it said that we unite to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. You may have noticed a theme there. Now, these original outline purposes were the subject of much heated debate in the beginning of our denominational history. UUs are great at having heated debates about things. And this was no different, especially you got 2 faith communities coming together, right? So there was lots of debate between the Unitarians, who maybe were going through a little more humanist of a movement, the Universalist Church, which was definitely more Christian at the time. They're trying to figure out how it all fits for men. Right? It was a different time. But after much deliberation and word crafting, they came up with those original words, which served as the purposes and principles of our faith until the mid-'80s. Yeah, that's a long time for some of that language. In the 1970s, though, the UU Federation of Women began saying, hey, brother, give me a break, throw me a bone, right? And throughout that decade and into the 80s, there was much debate about how the guiding principles should be changed. And after many years of study commissions and hard work of many individuals and the denomination as a whole, our current principles and sources were adapted in 1987. That is to say that these processes take a while to happen. Well, they were involved in those conversations too. I mean, everybody was involved in those conversations. Through our bylaws, we also declare that our principles and purposes should be revisited every 15 years. And to that end, there had been no significant changes to the principles that we have now since the 80s, even when they revisited them, until 2017. Then there began an inquiry and study about adding an 8th principle to the 7, which was specifically themed around anti-racism and anti-oppression work. And as well as some tweaking to some words of the current principles. Namely, there was a lot of debate about changing the wording of inherent worth and dignity of every person to the inherent worth and dignity of every being. That's a big shift. And so there were these studies going on, right? So the study commissions are going out across the country, they're talking to all these different congregations and members, they're holding meetings online, all that kind of stuff. So this is the study on Article 2, they had a long name. Anyway, so they're doing all that work, and they're listening at General Assembly as well. This work's been going on. So last year, the Article 2 Commission was done with their work, and they were going to publish their report with their recommendations. So we all thought that the 8th principle was getting added, which had already been worded, which this congregation had already added to our 7, right? Remember that vote? We were like, we're going to do that anti-racism and anti-oppression work. So even ahead of these changes that are being suggested, we're on board, right? Guess what? When they delved into the task at hand, what they discovered were other things that seemed to be lacking in our current principles and purposes. First of all, there was no theological grounding or centering component, which is not surprising as we are a creedless faith, right? Without a prescribed set of beliefs. Still, it was lacking. Those of us that are on the ministerial professional side of things especially noticed this a lot. Right? We're like, we don't have a center grounding spot. Secondly, they became aware that the current principles and sources were very wordy and that most folks could name a few principles, but not all of them. Who can tell me what Principle 6 says? Exactly, right? Number 1, inherent worth and dignity. Number 7, anything in between. Anybody name anything in between? Something about democratic process, something about peace and a free and responsible search for truth. So that's all somewhere in the middle, right? That's what we've got. We got those first and last. We got the bookends really good. And then the middle part, we just kind of, something about blah, 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 blah. So that makes it kind of hard to explain to people, right, when they're asking about our faith. So they took their task before them as both deepening the meaning of our purpose while also simplifying and making it more accessible to living in our hearts and our minds. So last summer, the General Assembly voted to accept the new changes that they proposed. And this year, congregations across the country have been diving into these themes and trying it on for size. And in June, the General Assembly delegates will make a final vote to affirm the changes. So last year, we voted to try them on. This is what it says in the bylaws we have to do, try them on for a year, and then we take a final vote the next year to pass them. So that will happen this year. The proposed new version of the UUA Statement of Purposes and Values, they took the word principles out, as held in Article 2 of our bylaws, look like this. Big change. Rather than written out as a list of principles, we have a set of values that spiral out from a core value of love. This centering of love gives our UUism something to deeply be grounded in my humble opinion, and it gives us a much better talking point than our 7 principles alone did. When family or friends or coworkers ask you about your faith, rather than attempting to remember all of the principles or values, you can simply tell them that our faith is grounded in love, universal love. And that's beautiful.
Make the logo out of that?
Huh?
Make the logo out
That's it, right there. That's what they've got right now, without the pluralism in the woo-hoo, because I did that because that's what we're talking about today. So all this year, we've been exploring what it means to be a community grounded in love alongside these named values of generosity, justice, interdependence, equity, and transformation, and May being the final month in this year's church calendar, we're going to explore the theme of pluralism. So let's talk about pluralism, which that's one of the words up there that people are like, what? What is pluralism? What does it mean? Pluralism, according to Webster's, has several definitions, including that is a theory that there are more than one or more than two kinds of ultimate reality, right? I would say there's infinite. And also says that it's a theory that reality is composed of a plurality of entities. Again, we might even say that it's a reality composed of infinite smaller realities within the larger. It's also defined as a state of society in which members of diverse ethnic, racial, religious, or social groups maintain and develop their traditional culture or special interests within the confines of the bigger picture of things. More poetically, we can return to the words that Kai offered from Black Elk. I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all things as they must live together in one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops. The proposed changes to the UUA's Article 2 under Values and Covenants offers these words to further unpack what it means to be a pluralistic faith. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Now, if we go back to our current and likely soon ending principles and sources, we can see threads of that language brought forth into these new values. Search for truth and meaning, right, is in there. And also celebrating our diversity, so that kind of goes along the lines of that inherent worth and dignity. We celebrate that all sacred beings diverse in culture, experience, and theology. This honors also those named inspiration and wisdom sources that we had previously named, but it opens it up more pluralistically by not naming them to just 6, right? We are inspired by an infinite number of things. The covenant is to learn from one another in our own search for truth and meaning. This harkens back to a previous language of promoting the free and responsible search for truth and meaning and acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. I think that's principle number 3 or 4. I'm a minister. See, I don't even know which one it is. What has changed is that these are no longer merely principles, but promises, aspirations held within the larger context of pluralism. Thus, a free and responsible search for truth is not for any one truth, right? That is not what we are searching for. We're not searching for one holds everything, is the answer to everybody truth. But we're looking for a pluralistic version of that. And in covenanting to learn from one another and embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect, we are promising not to hold this one destination or one idea above the rest, but to honor the journeys of each other within that realm, to honor everybody's journey to what truth means for them, right? When we are faith values pluralism, we see you and we meet you and honor you right where you are. And we ask you questions about what is important to you and why. Not to correct you or teach you some other way, but to value your path and maybe learn a little bit more about you and our own selves in the process. When we are a faith that values pluralism, we lift up the experiences of all as value. We lift up the experience of all gender, of those who choose no gender. We lift up the voices of all races and classes. We lift up the voices of those that have been marginalized and pushed aside for far too long by dominant voices. We honor the experiences of LGBTQ folks. We seek to affirm those with disabilities and those with mental illnesses and welcome them and their experiences in this larger circle and hear from them. We welcome the children and invite them to be with other children, or they can stay right here with us in this room because their journey too is a part of this whole, and so is their parents. When we are a faith that values pluralism, we look to create and celebrate multiculturalism and multi-generationalism. We look to celebrate the diversity of beliefs that exist within our faith, within this room, and beyond it. We are a faith that values pluralism. When we are a faith that values pluralism, we seek to create the beloved community that Martin Luther King Jr. described as a society where caring and compassion drive communities and political policies that support the worldwide elimination of poverty and hunger and all forms of bigotry and violence. That's what we're talking about when we say beloved community. A pluralistic faith. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight, and in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. Blessed be and amen. I don't have any more, but I do have a couple minutes if anybody has questions about pluralism. It's only 20 after. Anybody have any questions? Seth?
This is how the best machine learning models work. They have a whole bunch of different smaller kernels that are all
Right.
their own perspective, and then the medium between all the different perspectives tends to be a better match.
Right. I'll reiterate that on the microphone. So Seth is saying how models of learning now incorporate that pluralistic idea, right? You meet kids as to, or anybody for that matter, any adults, the same thing. Like, how do we learn? It's all different. For some people it's doing, for some people it's reading, for some people it's conversation, right? And so that we have a pluralistic approach in a lot of other ways too. That's a good point. Anybody else have anything to add? The sum is always greater than its parts because relationship adds value. Am I right? Right? So 1 + 1 isn't 2 because the value of the relation could be infinity, right? I mean, those of us that are in good, positive relationships with a loved one know that. And so that is true. And so the more that we make space for the value of each thing, the stronger the relationships, the more dynamic the relationships, and the better we are at seeing things. And I cannot stress how important a vision of pluralism is right now. I know I mentioned election anxiety earlier, and we're in a very divisive time right now. Very divisive time, right? We don't have to be, and they really like to pit us against one another, and we pit ourselves against each other too. I'm guilty. I'm sure you all can sit there and say, yeah, the judge, who here doesn't judge the other side of things politically? It's really hard not to. But we can do other things too. We can find our commonalities, and we can still listen to other people even if we don't agree with them. And that does not mean that they're going to listen to you. And that does not mean that you're going to convince them or they're going to convince you, because that's probably not going to happen. But it means that we can listen and we can make space and we can still have a relationship. So that's something we could do. Our closing hymn this morning is number 318, We Would Be One. That's in the gray hymnal. I like that hymn. Just a reminder that the board is in the fireside room to meet you to talk about budget or any other questions that you have about the goings-on and running of this great fellowship. Please feel free to grab coffee and a snack, right, to take up in there if you want. Folks on Zoom, you can stay on the Zoom link that you're on now, and that'll be over in the other room in a minute. Will you all please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice? Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Closing words. May our lives be reflections of the beauty, peace, and joy that is possible in this world. And may the love we find in this place sustain us as we go our separate ways.